What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to break down things that you need to know for this upcoming week that might cause a little bit more volatility in Lucid. And despite that though, I want to talk on with all the facts that we know within the economy, where's Lucid going in the short term? Before I get into any of that though, making sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. And with that said though, let's get right to it. Live ticker is going at the very bottom of the screen. Currently red, was largely green first thing, as you can tell based on this intraday chart. But unfortunately things and a little bit more fear in the market now brought on because of both Powell, based on last week, kind of piggybacking off of that. And outside of that though, Russia kind of situation a little bit. So I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more afterwards. But as of right now, 6.2 million for volume, 19 is the average, and 359,000 shares being purchased by institutions just today alone on the secondary market. So that is a little bit lower, especially if you do couple that with the dark pool transactions. It just shows that big money is taking a step back. So on Friday though, with the news that we did have, which came from Powell and obviously the Feds increasing the rates and what their forecast was, big money was buying that dip. So that was a very big optimistic viewpoint, especially more so as well. Shorts closed out 4.19 million shares on Friday. So this is why we had a nice little bump up at the tail end of the day. It was shorts closing out the positions. But unfortunately, the fear is being continued into this week, largely just because of the underlying sentiment of the Feds on basically how they're trying to push the line as far as possible to ensure that there is no inflation. And so a lot of people are now correlating this to the 80s when there was a huge amount of inflation. And to kind of combat that, they raised the interest rate similar to this time around. But unfortunately, it didn't really get rid of inflation. So now a lot of people are now thinking of a lot of the different options that might play out this time around. So that's something you need to factor in. As far as some economic events this upcoming week that might cause a little bit more volatility within Lucid and the broader market is going to start on Thursday. So with GDP numbers. So you can even see the quarter over quarter is anticipated to be negative. So it's one of those things, and obviously is negative. So even if it does come in line with the forecast, people are going to take that news and convert it to a negative. So it's one of those things that most likely I feel that this week might be fairly neutral, if not a little bit positive up until this Thursday point. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But despite all that, it's going to be very volatile. Outside of this GDP numbers, there's also going to be PCE numbers, and that is on Friday. In case you guys don't know, CPI, a lot of people love to look at that and use that as a good indicator about inflation and whatnot. In my opinion though, that is very heavily weighted for energy. So a lot of people don't necessarily like to look at CPI. The Feds, for instance, like to use PCE numbers. So again, it's a little bit more important in the grand scheme of things. So Thursday and Friday are going to be very volatile days, and especially over the last several Fridays, the volume has been a little bit higher. So it's been a weird scenario going on. So let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments below. Keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence at the end of the day. These videos are only for entertainment purposes, and in the end, I hope you're entertained by this. But one abnormal thing I just want to show you, you can see this $3.76 million transaction from Friday after hours. Oddly enough, on Friday, there's been a lot of big money closing out the positions. And so when it comes to it though, this isn't necessarily correlated with this 4.19 million closing out. This happened during power hour. So I know a lot of people, when I post these, a lot of people just say that this is shorts closing out the positions, blah, blah, blah. That isn't the case. Looking on the actual technicals though, we are still, even though we are red right now, we're still within that lower percentile of the Bollinger Band. So in reality, we're kind of within a set range. Stochastic though, it is turning a little bit oversold. So a little bit more of a negative thing. As you can see over the last several weeks or so, it's been that red line above the black. Again, that's a little bit more of a bearish sentiment. Momentum number of buyers that's been maintaining itself, which is a very big abnormality. So I like to see what's happening behind the scenes. I like to always see what the sentiment is for stocks. So clearly a lot of people really like Lucids at these prices. So this is where you do get a nice big rush of value investors despite the fear. And this is exactly what happened, why we got this big spike first thing. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But given the fear and most likely the negative sentiment when it comes down to the GDP numbers, I feel that this week might be negative, which even given the recent news about Lucid, it goes to show that the automotive sector is going to be pretty pretty heavily hit by inflation, despite the positive August news that's been coming out and the results. And I have been doing quite a lot of those videos updating you as far as Hyundai, Netherlands data, even Tesla sales from all of August, all were up very, very huge, insinuating that the demand for EVs is there. So it's one of those things that in the grand scheme of things, as I always say, Lucid is a very good long-term investment. These are amazing prices, but if you are one of those individuals that likes to catch the bottom, we might not necessarily be there. So that's my own 2 cents on where Lucid might be going in the short term, but I personally feel it is going to be the next CPI data, and if that does come out showing a little bit more positive as far as it being curbed, if you want to call it that, then in reality that might be the saving grace for the broader economy. Up until that point though, it is just a ton of fear, especially talking about nuclear war. Nobody wants to hear that. Does not help anyone whatsoever. So it's just a very crappy time if you want to be fully honest about all this. And like I've always said, I've been investing since 2009. I've been through a lot of different things, but ever since COVID came out, it's been just a very interesting time for investors. So for those of you that continue by the dip or dime in hand, it does and will make you better investors. You probably are having a lot of sleepless nights, possibly some of you in the grand scheme of things, but you have to think bigger picture, more so as well with Lucid and other similar growth stocks such as SoFi, also another one that I do cover. But I also like to look at what big money is doing, and despite the fear, there is still some institutions that are buying. So let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. If you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With that said, appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.